The purpose of any text making an argument is to make a case for the position taken. Thus, supporting reasons are developed with evidence and explanation. However, an important part of any argument is to also look at reservations or shortcomings of the argument made, as well as tackling some counterarguments. Doing this shows to readers that the writer has considered the position with complexity and has looked at counterarguments. First, let's look at reservations. Perhaps the argument made is only valid under certain circumstances. For example, the text is arguing for a large investment in a new bridge. However, the big reservation could be that the project would require federal funds. Therefore, the argument for the new bridge is only valid under the circumstances if the city gets federal funds for the project. Similarly, with a lot of arguments, there are situations where the argument isn't valid or there are exceptions. Discussing any reservation shows that the writer has thought carefully about the argument made. Every argument, by definition, has a counterargument. So for a shorter essay, for example, in many circumstances, the top one to two counterarguments should be tackled. This can be done by briefly overviewing the counterargument and then explaining or framing it based on how it relates to your argument. Maybe the counterargument is a valid argument, but it doesn't hold as much weight as your argument, for instance, or maybe the argument is invalid or flawed for some reason. Not all arguments will have reservations, at least not that they need to be discussed, but every argument has to have counterarguments. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an argument, but a fact. Whether they are actually discussed or where they are discussed will also depend on what the assignment calls for. Also keep in mind that with most argument assignments, the counterarguments should not be given as much real estate as the argument itself, since the major focus should be the point you are arguing for. You do want to make sure that you are discussing counterarguments in your research argument for the class, however.